Seeker's premium multifunction temperature calibrators support 4 methods of calibration, contain a rocket controller, and supposedly make calibration 50% quicker. But what does all this mean? And what does it mean for you and your business? Calibration service centers, food, pharmaceutical, and other industrial manufacturers all understand the need for accuracy when it comes to temperature measurement. However, ensuring this accuracy can be time-consuming and complicated. Thankfully, Robert Stone, Seeker's Business Development and Key Account Manager, is here to talk to us about how Seeker's temperature calibrators make maintaining accuracy easy, efficient, and crucially, cost-effective. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you.
Today we're talking about Seeker's TP Premium temperature calibrators.
Yes.
However, before we get into that, please could you tell us a bit about temperature calibrators, what they're used for, who uses them, and why they're useful?
Yes, certainly. Temperature is a very widely measured unit throughout industry and throughout the world, really. And temperature calibrators are used in various forms and various different levels of capability to calibrate these temperature sensors that we find in everyday life. From an industrial perspective, you'll see a lot of temperature sensors in many variations, from food industries, pharmaceuticals, hydraulics, engines, everywhere really. And a calibrator will help a service engineer or even a calibration house calibrate these temperature sensors to make sure they still stick within their specification limits.
I suppose that's very important when you're talking about food and pharmaceuticals, like health and safety and things like that.
Absolutely, yes. Temperature is a key feature to make sure the resulting end product that somebody's manufacturing is very repeatable and it meets all of their criteria as well. So temperature is a very important part of it. Calibrating temperature sensors on a regular basis is an important feature for most businesses.
Now let's talk about Seeker's temperature calibrators.
Yep.
Which model or models are we talking about today?
Today we have here with us the premium calibrator, which has a wide variety of functionality and capability within it. The other models within the Seeker range are our solid range and our basic range, depending on what level of device that a customer is looking for. The TP Premium is our most versatile unit with a lot of capability, which interests a lot of different people. But when we talk to customers, we talk about what their demands are and how they want to use a calibrator in the field. So we then talk about their requirements, and then we look at the different models within the range to make sure we pick a suitable device for the customer.
Yes. We should say this interview is going to focus primarily on the multifunction Indian model.
Yes.
So with that in mind, I understand there are a couple of different versions of the multifunction premium model.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about the differences between those, please?
Yes, certainly. So this one shows with the instrumentation that we offer. You can have it with or without this instrumentation on the front panel. But what this allows us is that we can then calibrate 2 devices under test, along with an external reference sensor, or use the internal reference sensor. And then from that, we can then calibrate those 2 units completely. And then at the end of that, give the end customer a PDF document that they could then download via the USB ports at the front.
And do these models vary in regard to temperature range?
Yes. We can have a various temperature ranges. We can, with the TP Premium, we can currently go from minus 55 degrees centigrade all the way up to 700 degrees centigrade. But there are various temperature ranges within each of those models.
And that's to suit various applications?
Absolutely, yes.
And is that also the case when it comes to the stainless steel casing? Is that better for food and pharmaceutical?
Most stainless steel cases are primarily used in the food and pharmaceutical industries. It depends if the calibrator is going to where the temperature sensors are located within the process, or they're being brought out of the process and calibrated somewhere else. Then you can just go with the painted version.
So what makes these temperature calibrators multifunctional?
What we have here with the premium and the multifunctional side of things is that we have certain inserts that go in and out of the actual main insert in the calibrator. We have a dry block insert in here currently, and within that we have 48 holes, which could then take 48 different temperature sensors and calibrate those all in one go. What we can also do is slide that dry block out of the calibrator, and then we can put different versions in. In here we have the infrared calibrator for infrared guns. We can calibrate those. Yeah. And we also have a wet bath, which is silicon oil, and we can calibrate various sensors of different shapes and sizes, which won't necessarily go into a hole. Yeah. On top of that, we have another block where we can do surface temperature. So we have a surface temperature block, which would drop into, again, the calibrator. The temperature sensor would sit on top, and the reference sensor would go directly underneath the device under test, and then we'll calibrate from there.
To read more about Sika's TP Premium Multifunction Temperature Calibrators, click the box above to download the spec sheet, or head to our website where you'll also find an option to purchase. The link's in the description. In the meantime, we'll be finding out how Sika's temperature calibrators work. The key question engineers always ask about temperature calibrators is, how does it work?
Yeah.
So could you tell us a bit about how Sika's TP Premium Temperature Calibrators work, how to use each calibration function, and which temperature instruments can be calibrated using each function, please?
Yeah, certainly. There are many various functions that we won't go into today, but basically it's very intuitive on a touchscreen panel we have here. It's very step-by-step process driven. And once you've set it all up, you can actually save that setup inside the calibrator. So you only have to do it once. But basically what we have to do, first of all, is decide which of the inserts are inside the unit. In this one, it's a dry block, so we pick the dry block. And then we pick the linearization software that's inside the unit. We choose that device. And then we talk about the device under test, which is the customer's product. Yeah. And then we also choose whether it's an external or an internal reference sensor that we're using. Once we have those set up, we can then pick up how many different temperature points, because of various temperature ranges we can use. So some customers would use 3 temperature points, 4, 5, however many they need. And once all of that criteria is set up, we can actually save that setup, as I said, and we can call it something. So we could call it 1, 2, 3, 4 if you wish, or wherever the temperature sensor seems to have come from, a customer would use that so we can remember what it's called.
So I'm a bit curious about what you can calibrate using each method, because you mentioned infrared thermometers and you mentioned temperature probes. So could you just give us a quick overview of what the dry block can be used for, etc.?
There are a wide range of various temperature sensors, which also give various different outputs as well. So with all the functionality within the front screen, we can offer customers from PT100s all the way up to amplified milliamp outputs, K-types. There's a wide variety of different temperature sensors, but there's also different wide range of temperature sensor shapes. Yeah. Not only are they just straightforward probes which go into a process, but we have weird shapes and sizes, and that's where you'd use something like a bath. Mm-hmm. So you can actually use that to actually drop the sensor into the liquid bath, and then we can calibrate a weird kind of shape of a sensor as well if you needed to. We can also calibrate digital pressure temperature gauges. So on this particular scenario, we have a camera function where we can actually look at the digital readout from the device under test, and then we can correlate it with the actual temperature that the unit is actually generating.
As you've explained, the Sika Premium Temperature Calibrators, 4 functions, make it extremely versatile.
Yes.
However, this versatility is somewhat hampered if it can only calibrate one device at a time. So what has Sika done to ensure that their premium temperature calibrators are not limited in this way?
We use the AirShield dry block unit, where we can put up to 48 different sensors within the unit. And that unit is a unique design for Sika, because within that, we can have, within the homogenized area, we can have a uniform temperature from one side of the block to the other. So each individual sensor will see the correct temperature. The other feature is that with this instrument at the front here, we can calibrate 2 sensors at a time. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is once the user has set up the devices under test and the calibrator itself, you can actually just power it up, switch it on, and it'll run through its calibration process all on its own and then finish at the end. You don't have to stand over it. You don't have to do anything with it. And at the end of that process, you'll receive a PDF calibration sheet.
Great. And am I right in thinking you can connect these up to other measurement instruments so you can calibrate multiple sensors at the same time? I think you mentioned a DAX system before.
Yes. So when you've got a large number of sensors within the unit, those sensors would have to come out, and then those outputs would have to be measured separately.
Yes.
So then you can actually, with the relevant instrumentation, you can have that number of sensors within the unit and calibrate using the unit and another instrument to take the output signals, and then you can calibrate a large number.
Yeah, great. So that's how Seeker ensures their versatility across both like forms of calibration and quantity.
Yes.
Yeah. For more details on the Seeker TP Premium Multifunction Temperature Calibrators, functions and design, click the link in the description or the box above. But do come back, because we're going to find out how these Seeker instruments make calibration 50% faster. At the beginning of this video, we told people that the Seeker TP Premium Temperature Calibrators can reduce calibration time by up to 50%.
Yes.
Which is a big claim.
Absolutely.
So it's probably about time we justified that.
Okay.
So could you tell us about the Rocket Controller and why it's so revolutionary?
Yes. This is a patented design from Seeker. The Rocket Controller is named because part of the algorithm that is used to, as part of the stability process we have when we're ramping up or reducing the temperature, is taken from the Apollo rocket landing algorithms. So that's only part of that. But we use that to arrive at the stability temperature range that customers need before they can actually take a reading and then move on to the next temperature point.
Yeah. And that's important because like it's all well and good getting to the temperature that you need quickly, but if it's not stable, it's not a good calibration.
Correct.
All right. Yeah. And so the Rocket Controller helps with this.
Yes, it targets the actual temperature point you're looking for. So the power within the unit increases the temperature quickly, like everybody else's unit.
Yeah.
But when we arrive at that temperature, the stabilization is very important. So we actually target that with the algorithm, and it's a predictable algorithm which gets us to the stability level we need much quicker than anybody else on the market.
Yeah, which both improves the efficiency of calibration, the accuracy and the reliability.
Yes, but mainly for a lot of customers, it's down to time.
Yeah.
So if it arrives at the stabilization point quickly, it means it can move on to the next point and the whole process is done much quicker.
One of the most laborious and time-consuming parts of any calibration job is the reporting. So how has Seeker designed their premium multifunction temperature calibrators to improve this?
When you calibrate a couple of units within the device, you can actually plug in your device under test into the Seeker unit itself. And that will then take the measurements from the reference sensor and the device under test, and it'll populate the calibration sheet as they move through the different temperature thresholds that it's targeting.
So it sort of does the reporting at the same time as doing the calibration?
Effectively, yes. Most calibrators will expect the end user to write down the temperatures and then input that into a computer for an Excel spreadsheet or something, whereas Seeker, when we plug it into the instrument itself, that'll actually generate that data for you. And as I say, it can be pulled out either via a PDF or an Excel format, and that's already done for you.
So I suppose that not only helps with the efficiency of reporting, but it also eliminates any potential human errors when it comes to writing down the data.
Indeed, and that'll help give the end customer a reliable calibration information, and that will be delivered to them more quickly because we can download that information onto a computer and then email that to the customer directly.
I think it's fair to say that convenience and job efficiency are at the heart of Seeker's temperature calibration design.
Yes.
And now I wondered if we could highlight a couple of features that strike me as particularly helpful. We've already touched a bit on the camera function.
Yes.
So could you tell us a bit about the wireless interface and the barcode scanner, please?
Absolutely, yes. So what we can do here, we can actually integrate with the calibrator itself. We can go onto a network with the network connections, and then we can wirelessly communicate with the calibrator and to start the calibration, stop the calibration, take information from the calibrator. Another useful feature is that we have a barcode scanner which is just a general purpose barcode scanner.
Yeah.
So a lot of customers who tend to have a number of different temperature sensors that look the same, you may want to have an actual barcode for each device so that when you've set up that device within the unit, you can actually scan it the next time you come to calibrate it, and the calibrator will remember the data and then pick it out, and then you'll be able to calibrate more quickly.
That really plays into convenience and efficiency, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Remember, box above for spec sheet, link in the description for web listing and option to purchase. Next, we're going to find out if the Sika TP Premium multifunction temperature calibrators offer a good return on investment and why you should consider spending thousands of pounds on one. So we've talked about how to use the Sika TP Premium multifunction temperature calibrators.
Yeah.
But I would like to focus now on how simple they are to use. Engineers, when they're out in the field, they might not have access to this video or a manual. So how have Sika designed their temperature calibrators to ensure they're easy to use regardless of location or user experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So when the customer comes to use the device, or they haven't used it very often, or haven't used it for a little while, they'll come to the home screen, they'll see the different boxes that you need to work through to input the right data for the, whether it's a dry block, the device under test, etc. But what we also have is that at the top of, on the top of these screens, there sometimes is a question mark. Mm-hmm. That question mark links to a YouTube video, which is inbuilt within the device. And that will tell you via the YouTube video and speaker that how to go through that actual process which you're looking to achieve.
And you don't need to connect to the internet for that. It's just inbuilt.
Not at all. It's inbuilt completely.
Oh, that's useful. Sika's TP Premium multifunction temperature calibrators are easy to use and they're efficient.
Yes.
But if I was the manager of a manufacturing plant, I might say, but they're also expensive. Why should I shell out thousands on a temperature calibrator when I could send my components away to be calibrated for just hundreds of pounds? Why should I invest in a temperature calibrator at all? And on top of that, why a Sika?
Absolutely. If a customer has several hundred, sometimes, temperature sensors within their factory, the last thing they want is to actually have a lot of their temperatures leave the factory itself. So they want to have an on-site calibrator where they can bring the temperature sensors to the calibrator or the calibrator to the temperature sensors and do the calibration on site very quickly. As we've said, it's 50% quicker to hit the stabilization points that we have within the calibrator. So therefore, the downtime of the temperature sensors being used within the process is reduced significantly.
Yeah. So it might be more expensive initially, but you are going to save money over time if you invest in a Sika.
Absolutely. When it comes to temperature calibration, time is a big factor, especially when you looking to calibrate over wide temperature ranges, and it takes time to get to each of those temperature points. So time is money, yes, and we can save that.
Great. And is there anything else you think we should know about the Sika TP Premium temperature calibrators?
So the TP Premium has various functionality, lots of different features. We can calibrate various different temperature sensors over different temperature ranges. So the variety of what we can do and the breadth of the products that we can calibrate is really quite large. The benefit to a customer will come down to how long it takes to calibrate each particular unit. As we mentioned earlier about the Rocket controller, that part of the Sika calibration unit helps reduce the time in which it takes to calibrate a unit. And especially when we use the two instruments on the front face there, what a user can do is set up two sensors within the unit, switch it on and leave it and go away and do something else. So there's a time benefit, which ultimately turns into a cost benefit.
Great. And finally, if you were to sum up the Sika TP Premium multifunction temperature calibrators in 3 words, what would they be?
Accurate, reliable, dependable.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. That was comprehensive. I hope we've illustrated how reliable, user-friendly and efficient the Sika TP Premium multifunction temperature calibrators are, and more importantly, why they are such a good investment. Remember, you can click the link in the description for more information as well as an option to purchase. And do subscribe, as that way all future videos will come straight to you without you having to do a single thing, ensuring you'll never miss an important development. Okay, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.